My name is Dr. Eris Thorne. I have a PhD in paleontology from Yale, and I can tell you the precise geological age of a rock formation by its scent after a rainstorm. To my family, however, all of this just means I have a very expensive degree in digging up useless bones. But wait, before we dig into this story of deep time and epic revenge, I need your help to keep this channel going. For us to continue bringing you stories like this every single day, your engagement is the only payment we ask for. It costs you nothing, just a single second, but for us, it makes all the difference. So, stop everything right now and smash that like button hard. If you aren't part of our Legion of Stories yet, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss a thing. And so I know how far our stories are reaching, comment down below what city and state you're watching from. I want to get to know every single one of you. Done? Awesome. Now, get ready. Picture that moment. That instant when, with your very soul laid bare, you attempt to share something that pulsates deep within you. Perhaps it's a profound yearning, a nascent intuition, a vulnerability you finally mustered the courage to unveil. It's as if you stand there, clutching in your hands something incredibly precious to you, something you've excavated from the depths of your own being, a silent truth. You offer it with the fervent hope that it will be seen, comprehended, embraced. Yet instead, you're met with a blank stare, a condescending smile, or worse, scornful laughter. That's nonsense! You're overreacting. Why bother with that? It's futile. The echo of voices that belittle, that deride what to you is a treasure, transforming your most profound truth into a common jest. To them, perhaps, what you feel is a futile delusion, a senseless fantasy that ought to be dismissed. You feel like that solitary explorer, adrift in the desolate expanse, pursuing a vision perceptible solely to you. Each time you lay bare another facet of your being, it seems you are merely excavating worthless bones in the estimation of those beside you. Your fervent passion, your keen intuition, your profound need for authentic connection, all are trivialized, deemed unworthy of time, consideration, or affirmation. And the pain is not merely that of non-comprehension, but the profound anguish of feeling invisible, of having your inner world devalued by those from whom you most yearned for recognition. The persistent invalidation of what is most genuine within you can be profoundly exhausting. It is a solitary journey, a patient dance with time, during which you find yourself grappling with questions like, is it really me? Am I irrational for feeling this way? Why is what feels so profoundly real to me so utterly dismissible to others? The restless nights, the profound frustration stemming from futile attempts at communication, the false dawns of conversations that initially seem to promise understanding, yet inevitably culminate in profound disillusionment, all coalesce into a silent, agonizing routine. You find yourself withdrawing, not by conscious choice, but because the prohibitive cost of opening up only to be invalidated becomes simply too immense. Vulnerability transforms into a perilous risk, and silence a weighty, cumbersome armor. But there is a flame, an invisible flame that cannot be extinguished. Even amidst the derision with the sensation of unearthing useless bones, part of you knows that what you feel is real, that your quest is valid. This inner conviction, a melody whispered through millennia within you, becomes a silent fuel. It propels you forward even through the most arduous journeys and in the solitude of your own internal inquiry. You continue to dig, to explore your own feelings, to understand your own needs, because deep down, you know there is something more, something to be revealed, a truth that can rewrite the books of your own life and your relationships. It is this steadfast commitment to honoring one's intrinsic truth that propels us toward a pivotal juncture. One day, the earth yields differently. You are confronted not merely with a bone, but with an unmistakable fragment of your history, of your very essence. What appeared futile in the eyes of others reveals itself to be a silent cry from something profound, which had always resided within, awaiting acknowledgement. It is the unveiling of a new facet of oneself, a distinct species of emotional truth, which lay dormant there, poised to redefine one's self-perception and understanding of love. This is not a story about finding a dinosaur, but about unearthing your own inherent validity, your dignity, when the world around you seemed to cast doubt upon it. It concerns the moment you realize that true vindication does not stem from outward accolades, but from the quiet, profound recognition within. It marks the genesis of a journey to comprehend why certain dynamics recur, why we feel so solitary even when accompanied, and how to honor this internal revelation to forge connections that genuinely see us, hear us, and value us. This is the seminal moment for unraveling the mysteries of your truth and the manner in which you connect with the world, seeking a resonance that transcends the superficial, one that truly touches the soul. This unyielding commitment to one's truth, even in the face of dismissal, frequently uncovers the profound strata of our internalized patterns. It is as if, rather than merely reacting to external reverberations, we are also engaging with an ancient melody resonating from within, an unseen narrative that was scripted long before the current moment. Consider it a genetic blueprint of your emotional landscape, forged in formative interactions and subsequently shaping how you navigate validation and rejection. To illustrate, let us consider how early experiences of relational connection, or the profound absence thereof, can coalesce into a distinct attachment paradigm. Should one's formative years have been characterized by an inconsistent responsiveness to fundamental needs, or if the genuine articulation of one's authentic self was frequently invalidated, an unconscious strategy for navigating the world's complexities may have been devised. Such a strategy might materialize as a relentless pursuit of external approbation, an endeavor to render oneself indispensable to others, driven by the subconscious hope that by assuaging the existential void of another, one's own internal emptiness might remain unacknowledged. Consequently, the perceived disdain or indifference emanating from others transcends the realm of a mere isolated incident. It invariably lacerates a primal wound, rekindling the deeply ingrained belief that one's intrinsic worth is contingent upon external validation, or that one's internal landscape is, by its very nature, deemed futile unless it resonates with external comprehension. A crucial aspect also lies in the underlying fear of inadequacy. This is a potent undercurrent that fuels many of our relational behaviors. When one ventures to reveal a vulnerable aspect of their being and is met with indifference, this outward dismissal can validate a pre-existing internal narrative. I am undeserving of complete recognition, or my emotions are either overwhelming or insufficient. This conviction becomes ingrained, and with every subsequent instance of invalidation, it becomes more deeply entrenched, fostering a cycle where one may become hypervigilant to avert pain, or conversely, seek validation with even greater fervor, hoping the next attempt will be different. It's akin to an internal thermostat tuned to the pain of ostracism, where any external temperature fluctuation activates it. Furthermore, observe how certain unconscious habits may emerge. Self-sabotage, for instance, can be a distorted form of self-protection. If you have learned that being fully authentic leads to pain, you may develop mechanisms to withdraw, to preclude full self-disclosure, and to avert the risk of renewed ridicule. This can manifest as challenges in establishing clear boundaries, acquiescing to external expectations, or a reluctance to articulate your deepest needs, even when they are pressing. The internal voice whispering, "It's best not to inconvenience," or "It's not worth the effort," becomes an unseen sentinel, a shield that, paradoxically, compounds your isolation even further. Conversely, there's also the dynamic of internalizing criticism. Those useless bones that were ascribed to you can become an intrinsic part of your internal monologue. You might begin to castigate yourself with the same severity that was directed at you, devaluing your own feelings and intuitions before the external world even has the opportunity to do so. It is a defense mechanism that attempts to preemptively control pain by anticipating it, yet in actuality, it merely perpetuates it. The very passion for soul paleontology, once a driving force, can transform into a profound burden as you begin to doubt the veracity of your own insights. Delving into these internal roots is not an exercise in culpability, but one of liberation. It is the pivotal insight for deciphering why certain emotional portals remain shut or why you feel compelled to repeatedly knock on them, even when they appear to lead nowhere. It is the profound recognition that the reverberations of others' laughter are not solely about them, but also about the resonances they stir within your own being. By illuminating these entrenched patterns, you begin to rewrite your narrative, disarm obsolete triggers, and forge a more robust foundation for your inherent authenticity. This profound process of self-discovery serves as the inaugural step towards transmuting the vulnerability associated with feeling worthless into the unwavering strength of recognizing one's intrinsic value, irrespective of external validation. Now, direct your gaze toward the opposite bank of this river of interaction, to those who perhaps failed to discern the value in your fossilized femur or derided your fervor. This constitutes a complex exercise in empathy, for it is not about rationalizing the pain inflicted upon you, but rather to apprehend the intricate tapestry of human experience unfolding within the other. Consider that, at times, the inability to embrace the vulnerability of others is not a personal slight, but rather a reflection of an idiosyncratic internal emotional landscape, perhaps even unacknowledged by themselves. It's worth considering that what you perceived as disdain or trivialization might well be, for them, a deeply ingrained defense mechanism. Much like yourself, they too bear their own unseen burdens, their untold narratives, their silent apprehensions. For certain individuals, the articulation of profound emotions and the inherent need for validation can be perceived as treacherous ground, something to be eschewed at all costs. Perhaps throughout their own trajectories, any display of vulnerability was met with stern rebuke, or the authenticity of their feelings was never a lexicon spoken within their domestic environments. Consequently, they may have assimilated a defensive posture against emotional intensity, and this armor they meticulously constructed for themselves eventually permeated their interactions with the world, thereby impeding their capacity to recognize and embrace the emotional profundity of others. Furthermore, their reaction may stem from a distinct emotional capacity or a lack of internal mechanisms to process what you are conveying. Envision someone familiar only with primary colors, attempting to comprehend a complex hue. The absence of an emotional lexicon can lead to an oversimplification or even a devaluation of that which cannot be readily categorized. Their difficulty in connecting with your deeper essence or in validating your subjective experience may be symptomatic of a limitation in their own emotional intelligence rather than a judgment of your intrinsic worth. It is not a matter of deliberate malice, but rather a deficit in their capacity to navigate the more turbulent currents of emotion. Conversely, It's conceivable that the validation you sought for your discovery was met by their own unarticulated concerns. Many individuals operate under a pall of anxiety or internal pressures, rendering them less attuned to the emotional needs of others. Perhaps they were grappling with their own false positives and disillusionments in their lives, and the requisite energy to embrace your truth was simply not available at that juncture. This is not an exoneration, but rather an expansion of perspective. The veneer of interaction frequently masks subterranean currents of personal experience that dictate one's availability and receptivity. Another crucial layer resides in how the other interprets vulnerability. For some, the very act of articulating a deep-seated need or profound emotion can be perceived as an encumbrance, a demand they feel incapable or unwilling to bear. This perception might compel them to downplay or invalidate the expressed sentiment, not due to an absence of genuine care, but rather as an attempt, however clumsily executed, to shield themselves from a responsibility they feel unable to shoulder. Evasion within this framework thus becomes a pathway of escape from a potential emotional overburdening, rather than a judgment on the legitimacy of one's feelings. This more expansive understanding of human dynamics is not intended to mitigate the validity of your pain or the importance of having your truth acknowledged. Quite the contrary, its purpose is to enable you to grasp the full scope of the situation, to realize that not every negative reaction constitutes a direct assault on your person. Rather than being mired in resentment or frustration, you gain the freedom to disentangle your self-validation from others' responses. It extends an invitation to regard others with the type of compassion that acknowledges their limitations and their own struggles, without, however, allowing these limitations to define your self-perception. This expanded perspective is a pivotal stride towards forging more mindful connections and safeguarding the integrity of your own fossilized emer, your most authentic truth. While comprehending the other's inner landscape constitutes an emancipatory step, true metamorphosis resides in the capacity to weave a new tapestry of interaction, wherein communication serves as a bridge rather than a barrier. Consider your truth, your fossilized femur, no longer as something to be defended or concealed, but rather as a gift to be shared, an invitation to a more profound connection. For this overture to be embraced, and lest your vulnerability once again become a target, it is paramount to cultivate an environment of emotional security. This space is no accident. It is cultivated with mindful intention and delicate care, much like a garden where the seeds of trust blossom. Begin by redefining how you articulate your needs. Instead of resorting to accusations or sweeping generalizations that tend to erect defensive barriers, embrace I statements. Say, I feel emotion when specific situation occurs and I need clear need, rather than you always do action and make me feel emotion. This subtle yet powerful shift redirects the focus from blame and centers it on your subjective experience, transforming it into a statement about yourself rather than an attack on the other person. It's akin to offering a piece of your own puzzle rather than demanding the other person assemble yours. Furthermore, active listening constitutes the fertile ground where this nascent communication can truly flourish. It's not merely about awaiting your turn to speak, but genuinely absorbing what the other person conveys, striving to comprehend the underlying emotion beneath their words. Inquire, what are you feeling right now? Or could you elaborate on what that signifies for you? Validating the other's experience, even if you don't concur with it, establishes a safe harbor for both parties. Uttering phrases such as, I can see this as significant to you, or I understand you feel that way, constitutes vital acknowledgement that disarms defenses and paves the way for reciprocity. The establishment of clear boundaries, in turn, is not an act of distancing, but one of mutual respect, They're the invisible perimeters that define your personal space, allowing you to remain whole and fully present within the relationship. Articulating a boundary means conveying what is acceptable and what is not in a calm and assertive manner, devoid of aggression. For instance, I need a moment to process this before we continue this conversation, or I am not available for discussions in an elevated tone. These boundaries serve as an invitation to clarity, a roadmap for interaction to unfold in an environment of dignity where your energy and well-being are safeguarded. Another foundational pillar is the deliberate selection of the time and environment for meaningful conversations. Do not attempt to broach sensitive topics when either party is exhausted, stressed, or preoccupied. Establish a sacred space for dialogue, a specific time and place conducive to mindful engagement. This might be framed as an invitation. I would like to discuss something significant to me. Would you be available for us to sit down together for 20 minutes tomorrow evening? Such intentionality underscores the value placed on the relationship and the communicative process, signifying that the subject warrants a dedicated and respectful environment. And when rupture occurs, as is an inherent inevitability in any human relationship, the capacity for repair is what fortifies the bond. Offering genuine apologies, assuming accountability for one's part in the dynamic, and reaffirming commitment to the connection are profound acts of courage and love. I regret that my words caused pain. That was not my intention, and I care about how you feel. Acknowledging the impact of one's actions, even if unintended, is the adhesive that reconstructs trust. It transcends mere communication. It is the praxis of healing in action. Hence, authentic communication and the cultivation of a safe space are the very essence of conscious relational dynamics. It is not a matter of avoiding conflict, but rather transforming it into an opportunity for growth. Through the practice of heartfelt listening, soulful expression, and the judicious setting of boundaries, you not only excavate your own truth, but also facilitate the revelation of the others, collectively cultivating fertile ground where both can flourish, where the individual often dismissed as idiosyncratic, and those who regarded them with disdain, can finally forge a common ground of mutual respect and recognition. This is the bedrock for a love that not only comprehends, but also nurtures and elevates. In this intricate interplay of perceptions and reactions, where vulnerability finds its reflection in empathetic listening, and innermost truth seeks resonance, a new melody begins to emerge. The journey of delving into the origins of that sense of being unseen, of having genuine ardor discounted, guided us along profound internal pathways. We navigated the valleys of insecurity and the peaks of expectation, grasping how the reverberations of a distant past can sculpt the contemporary landscape of our interpersonal connections. This is not merely a topographical survey of the terrain, but rather a recalibration of the internal compass, now aligning itself with a more authentic and compassionate true north. When we examine the motivations and defenses of those who, at times, were unable to fully embrace our essence, we realize that the relational tapestry is always more intricate than it appears on the surface. The reactions of others frequently stem less from us and more from their own internal paradigms, their protective mechanisms, and their unresolved emotional needs. This realization does not diminish the pain experienced, but rather contextualizes it, thereby liberating us from the burden of internalizing others' dismissiveness as a definitive judgment on our intrinsic worth. It is as though the lens through which we perceive the world widens, unveiling previously imperceptible nuances and fostering a more benevolent perspective, both towards others and towards ourselves. Emerging from these strata of self-discovery and empathy, the understanding that coalesces is that genuine connection does not manifest in the absence of friction, but in the capacity to navigate through it with integrity and respect. The art of communication, which once seemed akin to a minefield, now unveils itself as a garden ripe for cultivation, where every carefully chosen word and every intentional moment of silence serve as seeds for reciprocal blossoming. It is not about evading the tempest, but about learning to craft vessels resilient enough to traverse the most tumultuous waters, maintaining a steadfast bearing of truth and clarity. The intricate web that is woven from these revelations is not one of entrapment, but of conscious interdependence. We acknowledge that the fossilized femur of our truth, that discovery that seemed futile in the eyes of others, is, in actuality, the cornerstone of a new way of loving. A love that does not solicit external validation, but that draws sustenance from its own inherent strength. A love that understands that the freedom of being is the greatest gift one can offer and receive, for it is in authenticity that the true strength of a bond resides. It is the shift from a quest for acceptance to a celebration of shared existence where the integrity of each individual enhances the whole. The journey to this juncture reveals that the most profound vindication resides not in external acclamation or deferred recognition, but rather in the serene knowing that your passion, your intuition, your truth were never useless bones. They were, from time immemorial, the murmured melody of millennia, patiently awaiting the opportune moment to be unearthed and embraced by your very being. It is this profound insight that the most valuable excavation is the one which intrinsically links us back to our inherent dignity, irrespective of the scornful laughter or the pervasive silence that may envelop us. In light of these insights, the path ahead is illuminated with renewed clarity. It is not about seeking a love that fills voids, but rather cultivating a love that overflows from within, from a place of inner abundance. It is the transmutation of the pain of misunderstanding into a propelling force for self-affirmation, for the construction of relationships that mirror the integrity and beauty of your being. The stage is now your own life, and the voice that echoes is that of your truth, which no longer seeks permission to exist, but simply is, full and resonant. This is the foundation upon which a form of love is built. One that transcends the superficial, embraces wholeness, and finally recognizes the inestimable worth of who you are. In this intricate tapestry of perceptions and reactions, where vulnerability finds its reflection in attentive listening and inner truth seeks resonance, a new melody begins to compose itself. The journey of unraveling the roots of that feeling of not being seen, of having genuine passion invalidated, has led us along profound internal pathways. We traverse the valleys of insecurity and the mountains of expectation, comprehending how the echoes of a distant past can shape the present landscape of our relationships. This is not merely a mapping of the terrain, but a reorientation of the internal compass, which now points toward a more authentic and compassionate north. Upon scrutinizing the motivations and defensive mechanisms of those who, at times, failed to embrace our intrinsic nature, one apprehends that the intricate web of relational dynamics is invariably more complex than superficially evident. The responses of others are frequently less reflective of us and more indicative of their idiosyncratic worldviews, their protective postures, and their unaddressed emotional voids. Such an understanding does not diminish the anguish experienced, but rather contextualizes it, emancipating us from the burden of internalizing others' disdain as a definitive judgment on our inherent worth. It is as though the lens through which we perceive the world were to expand, unveiling previously imperceptible nuances and fostering a more compassionate perspective, both towards others and towards ourselves. Emerging from these profound strata of self-discovery and empathy, the insight that crystallizes is that genuine connection does not manifest in the absence of friction, but rather in the capacity to navigate through it with integrity and respect. The art of communication, which once felt like a treacherous minefield, now unveils itself as a garden to be meticulously cultivated, where each thoughtfully chosen word and every intentional moment of silence serve as seeds for a reciprocal flourishing. It is not about averting the tempest, but rather about learning to construct vessels robust enough to traverse the most tumultuous waters, all while steadfastly maintaining the course of veracity and lucidity. The tapestry woven from these revelations is not one of confinement, but of conscious interdependence. We recognize that the fossilized femur of our truth, that discovery which seemed futile to external observers, is in reality the cornerstone of a new paradigm of love, a love that eschews external validation, instead drawing sustenance from its own intrinsic solidity, a love that apprehends that the unencumbered liberty of being is the most profound gift one can bestow and receive, for it is in authenticity that the genuine strength of a bond truly lies. It marks a transition from the pursuit of acceptance to a celebration of shared existence, where the integrity of each individual amplifies the collective whole. The journey thus far elucidates that the most profound vindication resides not in outward accolades or tardy recognition, but in the quietude of knowing that your passion, your intuition, your truth were never mere detritus. They were, from time immemorial, the whispered melody across millennia, awaiting the opportune moment to be exhumed and honored by your own hand. It is the profound realization that the most precious excavation is the one that reconnects us to our inherent dignity, irrespective of the derision or the silence that envelops us. Informed by these profound understandings, the path ahead unfurls with a revitalized clarity. It is not a quest for a love that merely fills voids, but rather the cultivation of one that overflows from profound inner plenitude. This marks the transmutation of the anguish of misunderstanding into a potent impetus for self-affirmation, guiding the cultivation of relationships that truly mirror the integrity and inherent beauty of your being. Your own life now serves as the stage, and the resounding voice is that of your authentic truth, one that no longer solicits permission to exist, but simply is in its utter fullness and resonance. This constitutes the bedrock upon which is erected a mode of loving that transcends the superficial, one that embraces totality and, at long last, apprehends the inestimable worth of your very being. Embrace the fortitude to embody the individual you are unequivocally destined to be, unapologetically and without ever diminishing your intrinsic radiance. Permit your profound inner unveiling to illuminate every step, every interaction, and every choice you undertake. The authentic practice of conscious love, of genuine connection, and of enduring peace commences now, at this very juncture, from deep within you. The story is over, but our conversation is just getting started. Now it's your turn to talk. I want to know 2 things in the comments, and I want honest answers. First, what would you have done in Eris's shoes after the discovery? Would you call your family to share the news, or would you let them find out on TV just like she did? Second, what did you think of the story? Is a scientific discovery a satisfying form of revenge? Leave your full opinion. If you made it this far, it's because this story moved you. So, if you haven't already, show your strength. Hit the like button so more people see this incredible turn of events. Subscribe so you don't miss the next ones. And share this with someone who needs to see justice served. Your engagement is our fuel. See you in the next story.